intimate group. I'm really excited for the conversation that we're going to have today. My name is Nathalie Charles, but I also go by Ocean. Most of the folks here who actually know me call me Ocean. And I use Ocean as my artist name. I am a multidisciplinary artist and oral historian, and I also happen to work here. And I have the pleasure of facilitating this conversation today. And I also just wanted to acknowledge and thank Art of Noise for giving us all this opportunity to gather around this work and these specific artists. These are all longtime DMV residents who have contributed greatly to the DC art scene. And I also want them to have the chance to introduce themselves to you. There are 3 talented artists, so it'd be a little bit too long for me to introduce all of them and all the awards that they have all received over the years. So could you start with Louise, introduce yourselves? Thank you.
Thank you everyone for taking the time to be out here, and again, thank Adrian and Art of Noise, and I'm just honored to be beside these 2 great artists here because as an artist, I think it's always good to associate yourself with great people because they say that whoever you associate with, you usually become like them, or not become like them, but you kind of feed off each other. So as an artist, I just love DC. I came here in 1980 and never left, and I think that no matter where I travel to, I think I'm always going to come back to DC because it's the place that I fell in love with.
Hello everyone. I was a little bit behind today, so I want to apologize for that. I'm not the most prompt, so it is what it is. Again, I apologize for that. But Levi Robinson, like Luis, I'm honored to be, in this show with these 2 gentlemen. I'm as big a fan of theirs as, I don't even know how to express that, but I'm a huge fan of these guys. As he said, I think in a lot of ways, it's a steel sharpened steel kind of thing. DEZ, when I first met DEZ, we were working on some murals, and I had never done murals before, and so I was new to using cans, and immediately he took me in. He took me under his wing. He showed me how to help my work translate into that mural space. And we've been like brothers ever since. Luis the same. It's just nice to be in the art community that we lead with relationships, right? In a political town like this it's easy to just focus on what people do. That's one of my least favorite questions. Like when somebody meets you in this town, often the first question is, what do you do? And it's like, forget about what I do, who am I? That's the real important thing. These 2 gentlemen, man, we just they're just as sincere and real people as you'll find. And I'm just honored to be here. I came here in DC. I'm originally from Jersey. I came here to DC in '95, I think it was, something like that. So I've really lived here in DC longer than I lived in my hometown, so I've come to love this place. I fell in love with it, since the first day I set foot in the DMV, and just being a part of this art community here in the DMV it's been life altering. It's been one of the best things that I've had occur to me in my life. So I'm happy to be here at Art of Noise. Thank you, Adrian. I'm going to call you Ocean from now on. That's like you shouldn't tell me. I'm going to call you what your friends call. And that's it.
All right. My name is DEZ Zambrano. I go by DEZ. If you hear DEZ, you rarely will hear David when people refer to me. Like it's funny because my mom, my mom passed away the 31st of last month, but she hated DEZ. She hated that name. She's like, quit DEZ. I didn't call you DEZ. I don't know who that is. You're David, okay? So, but it is a name that I've become enamored with. I think it's an incredible sign of respect when your peers refer to you by your art name. I think it's a wonderful thing. I am honored to be here at Art of Noise. Adrian, thank you. I am, you know, when they say you can't beat them, join them. I can't beat these two. So I'm happy to be sitting amongst them than competing with them. And, you know, Levi is, you know, both of these two gentlemen have really poured into me. And I'm very grateful for that. You know, Luis has helped me not only take steps to mature my art, but provided me with a recognition when he's seen growth in my artwork. Levi has really stretched my ability to storytell with my artwork, or at least bring that side out, because there was always a story to my art. I just didn't know how to express it, or I wouldn't make that the emphasis. And Levi was always, since we've met, he's like, that's just as important as the art itself, is what the art is trying to convey. Let people take it in. But if they ask you, what does this mean to you? You need to be able to deeply express what it means to you, not just surface level. Because they're going to fall in love with the story, you, and the art. And again, I'm just very proud to be sitting on this couch. And these two guys are two people that, and I'm not gonna lie, I'll be sincere. I'm not so good with the words, but if I wasn't sitting here, I'd be envious of them sitting here without me. So that just expresses to you the amount of pride that I have being able to be up here with them. Los Angeles born, but you know, other than the colorful graffiti type artwork, my mom moved me quickly out of Los Angeles. She did not want me growing up there. I was really, since my preschool years, I've been an Arlington resident. Grew up in Arlington County. Moved to, well, all around Virginia Falls, Church, Woodbridge, Dumfries, all of that. Through a lot of unwise decisions. And then, the best decision I ever made, I met my wife, and I've been a Montgomery County resident ever since then. So I am local. And just again, I can't emphasize what this area has meant to me growing up here and seeing how it's changed, but also having strong ties here and now being able to sit up here with people that I truly admire in the art world. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing those names into this space. I really respect the three of you, how you support and interact with one another, and how you are persistent in bringing your stories here. And I also wanted to give you guys space to talk about the role of art in your early life. And our conversation is separate from this one. I've been really amazed by what you have retained from early childhood and by the way of retaining your relationship to graffiti culture, to hip hop. And so I wanted to give you guys the space to speak on that.
It seems like when I was born, it was 1980 in Nicaragua. My mom was about 15 years old, going on 16, and it was during the Civil War. So during that time, you know, as a child, you don't know why your grandma's teaching you how to get in the bed when you hear gunshots outside, or how to get in the tub. You have to get in the tub to protect yourself, or how is it that you're going to cover yourself so that you won't get killed. And my art always had this political edge to it without me even thinking about it. So it's not like, oh, I'm going to paint John Lewis today. I'm going to paint Martin Luther King, Cesar Chavez. All of these, Malcolm X, all these political leaders that not only did they try to better their families first, but also try to better their communities, and then had an impact around the world. So with graffiti, it seems like you always had this propaganda edge to it. So when I started out, I grew up here in DC, and we call it, you know, Park Road. It's Uptown now. Now they call it Uptown. We used to call it Park Road. That's between 16th and 14th Street, right there, Columbia Heights area. And it was a lot of gangs, a lot of stuff going on. We had brothels down the street from my house, and all the graffiti that was done was pretty much promoting something negative. And but I always had this thing that I didn't want to put out the negativity that I was being raised in, because I saw that didn't bring anything positive. So even though I was doing like negative things, I never really wanted to express that through my art, because I noticed how art and music are so powerful that whatever we put out there, children gravitate to it, and at times they will learn something negative so much faster than we learn something positive. And I've always been careful with the way I use my graffiti, and I was always promoting reading. I was never like an avid reader. I love listening to things, and I listen to a lot of historical things. And if I read something, it has to be historical or something that has an educational edge to it. And one of the things that I realized is that children learn in different ways. And me being a graffiti artist and being visual, I learned through imagery a lot. So I started studying a lot of the old masters and trying to tell stories with my art. And now when we have kids that are being diagnosed with all this like ADD and all these different things, I started realizing that if I probably would have been diagnosed with one of those conditions, or I don't even know if they call it disease or condition, if I had not had an outlet, and thank God at that time they weren't really feeding kids all these drugs that they're giving them now. So that also, graffiti helped me realize that I can express myself in some way, small way, try to change the environment in my, around me. But before I try to change my community or the environment around me, I have to really change my home and the where I'm at. So graffiti has been something that I never chose to be a part of it. I just became part of it. I think you kind of just grow into it, and it's a lifestyle, it's a culture, and it's not something that you just kind of choose to do. It's something that you kind of live.
Man, it's hard to follow that.
Come on, George.
We'll start there. So I was born in Newark, New Jersey, which if you are familiar at all, it's not, it's pretty much right across the bridge from New York. And the environment I grew up in, it wasn't Nicaragua, but it was close. No, just kidding. But my first, I guess, influences with art. My mom was one of those. She was one of those young sisters in the '70s that, had the big afros and the platform shoes and the, bell-bottom pants, and she's bopping back and forth in New York, and so like the environment that I grew up in, or the people that I grew up around a lot of colorful people. My uncle was the ringleader of all of them, and when I was young, he got locked up. So while he was in prison, not prison, jail, big difference. While he was in jail, he was also an artist, and he loved to paint animals. Like that was his thing. He did animal portraiture, if you will. And so while he was in jail, he drew this horse. And they were just so amazed by, somebody got hold of it, maybe one of the CEOs or whatever, they got hold of the drawing, and somehow the news got a hold of it. And so the North Star Ledger, they did a whole article on him and this drawing that he did, and then they posted like on a billboard in downtown New York. It was amazing. And so my uncle he was kind of like the legend, For me, he was like the legend. He played ball, he was playing with Kareem and Dr. J and all that. Like he was really good. And so I just found myself like through the stories that everyone was telling me, because I'm young, I'm sort of absorbing these stories through everyone else telling me. I don't really know what's going on, I'm just kind of around it. But as I'm growing up, the legend of Earl Jones it was like everything, And so when I would say about 6 or 7 years old, my mom, we moved into this apartment, and we in Jersey, an apartment is kind of like a house, like a 3-family or 2-family house, And so we're in this apartment, and in my bedroom, he comes and he paints this mural on my bedroom wall, and it's a lion and a panther fighting in the jungle. And I had to go to sleep with this all night, every night. It freaked me out. But it was, you know, while I was also freaked out, I was also awed, you know, I was just in awe of this amazing piece of artwork on my wall. And I think that was what sparked, that's what sparked the, you know, the desire, I guess, to you know, I just wanted to be like my uncle in so many ways, you know. I played ball, I ended up drawing, you know, a lot of things. I didn't do some of the stuff that got him in jail. I didn't, you know, I didn't take part in. But as I got older, you know, graffiti. We started off when I was young in house music. You know, that was kind of the thing in Jersey. But then, you know, in the '80s, late '70s, early '80s, hip hop took root, or rap took root. You know, and when that happened, man, it just changed the world, you know, for all of us. And, you know, so now we walk around, we got our Kangos and our Gazelles and our suede Pumas and our Adidas, and we think that, you know, and so, you know, we was talking about this before, you know, one of the elements of hip hop is graffiti. And so, you know, I started translating some of the art that I was doing into graffiti, but I was a punk. I didn't want to do it on walls and be getting chased by cops and whatnot, but I did do a lot of it on paper. And I did do it on a couple walls and got chased. But I knew that wasn't for me. So, you know, I kind of kept moving on in life. And, you know, during my time, the adults, they didn't encourage, you know, the pursuit of art as a profession. You know, it was always like, how you gonna feed your family, you know, paint pretty pictures. So, you know, sort of being influenced in that way, I kind of, you know, it was one of those things that, you know how you, and I'm sure these guys can relate, when something is in you, like there's no suppressing it, you know, so no matter what you do, somehow, one way or another, you always find yourself gravitating towards it. And so, because I knew I had this desire, you know, in me to create, I started trying to look for ways that I could create and feed a family, you know. So I looked into architecture, you know. So I was at one point in my life, I thought that's what I was going to do, and it was too technical. It wasn't expressive enough, so I just left that alone entirely. But I've always been an inquisitive kid, and so what I ended up doing when I graduated high school, I went to college, but I went to college as a history major. So I'm in college, I'm studying history. You know, this is during, you know, again, this is early 90s. And we talked about this earlier, how, you know, the early 90s is when really Spike Lee and, you know, just a new awakening was going on in our community. And so I was one of those kids, I was walking around with a backpack, you know, had a chew stick, you know, and you know, so I was one of those kids. And I really got deep into, you know, the stories, you know, history told, and, you know, what history meant to us as a community, like what was our place in history. And at the time, I didn't understand how that was going to later translate in my life. So I'm going through life I'm going through, you know, school as a history major, and then one day I'm in school. I moved here, DC. I'm going to University of Maryland at the time, and I'm on my lunch break, and I pull out this picture in my wallet, and it's my baby sister, and I'm like, draw this, you know. I had a 30-minute lunch break. I started drawing this picture. By the time I finished, and I look at my watch, I've been sitting for 2 hours. I blew right through my lunch break. So I was like, okay, this is crazy. I'm changing my major. This is what I want to do with my life. This is where my time, like I don't feel time when I do this, you know. So I changed my major, you know, to graphic design. I was like, that's one way, you know, I can feed my family and, you know, scratch the itch. So I started studying graphic design. I get fortunate, I land a job in the federal government, you know, as a graphic designer. But then, fast forward, COVID happens, and this gentleman named John Chisholm, I'll never stop mentioning him. He starts to have conversations with property management groups in the DC area, DC, Maryland, DMV, and they want to start getting positive messages out during COVID because everything was shut down. Gallery Place was a ghost town. Like everywhere was a ghost town, and it was just a dismal place to be in the early months of COVID. And so John assembles a team of us, myself, DEZ being one, to start doing like positive messages and just beautiful things on storefronts that were now boarded up and whatnot, and windows. And so while we're out there doing that, George Floyd gets killed. So now the whole narrative shifts, and now it's no longer like the focus is for us, our community. The focus is no longer COVID. The focus is now this civil unrest. And so while we're out there, oddly enough, I'm out one day by myself because he was too fast. He does his and he's gone. By the time I get my stuff out the bag, I'm out there with my son one day. He's helping me out, and a gentleman from downtown DC is walking by. And he sees us working. He's like, "Wait a minute, I love what you guys are doing here. I have a project that I want you guys to take part in." So I point him to John. Me and John have a conversation. John comes back to me. He says, "Listen, he wants us to go do what we're doing here in Gallery Place." I'm like, okay, that sounds nice, cool. We get together. We have this meeting. He was out of town.
Mm-hmm.
We have this meeting down at Gallery Place. We standing on 7th, and we're like, okay, where do we start? And he says, oh no, all of this, all of Gallery Place. So it's like 4 or 5 of us at the time, it's like, how we go through all of this? So we then start reaching out to our whole community, Jay. We start reaching out to our whole art community. We get everything. Luis was too big time. He came out and held a couple ladders for us, he was like, But we go out there and we paint the whole area. And while I'm out there, and I'm gonna wrap this up, but while I'm working on mine, the craziest thing happens. I'm working on this mural, and it's a silhouette of a man holding a picket sign. And so the design is, I want people to, be able to stand in the silhouette holding this picket sign that says, we want justice now, right? And so while I'm painting this, DC Metro, they line up behind me. It's like 4 cop cars, they line up behind me, and they all start getting out of their cars. And I'm like painting on this building, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, I've been trying to avoid this, And so I'm thinking, in my mind, I'm like, where I'm from, if this scene happens, the next scene that happens is me in handcuffs, But instead, the officers come over to me and they're like, you okay? You good? Because, DC has a homeless population as well, so there's homeless people walking. He's like, how bothering you are they? I'm like, nah, they good. And they're just mass supporters. So now they want to take pictures with me, and all of that, the cops. And after the cops walk away, one of the homeless guys comes over. He said, "They were following you." So in that moment, it occurred to me. I said, for the first time in my life, they say the most important times in your life is the day you're born and the day you realize why. And in that moment, I realized that, I've done history as a major, and so I have a storytelling. I have storytelling sensibilities, and the work that I do is rooted in history and in social change and all of that. And so here I am standing in arguably the most important city in the world, and I'm doing art, the thing that I love, and I'm speaking to a moment in history, that everyone during this particular time will always remember. And I was like, this is what I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And, from that moment on, it just changed my perspective on life and my purpose. And so that's my story, and that's why I'm sitting here with these gentlemen.
I just want to say, I wish my name was Earl Jones. That's like Earl Jones sounds legend.
So, as I mentioned before, born in Los Angeles, mom was like, no, you're not. Born in 1976, she did the math. She was like, 80s, is it already getting hot? Nah, we're not doing that. Moved me to Arlington. So I would take, my mother and father were separated, I would take the red line from Arlington to Silver Spring. And, you know, we're talking about 80s, 90s. If you've ever taken that trip on the red line, especially back then, I mean, it was some of the most incredible graffiti I've ever seen in my life. I mean, big words, and not with permission, you know, big stuff. And then, you know, during this, I catch Beat Street. I'm not supposed to watch it, but I get this bootleg. You know, not bootleg, but, you know, my man gets the video. He's like, "Oh, we gonna watch this." I'm like, "All right, let's watch it." And Ramo, oh man, I'll never forget it. So Ramo's one of the protagonists in the movie. If you haven't seen it, shame on you. Go see it. It's cheesy, but it's dope. So Ramo's a graffiti artist. Basically, it's Beat Street is the MC, the dancers, you know, the hip hop dancers, and the graffiti artists. It's the three elements of hip hop, you know, according to them. So, and the DJ. Yeah. My apologies. I see Ramo, and he does this piece, "If Artists Sin, May God Forgive Me." And I remember to this day, I'm like, I remember that moment being just that moment where I was enamored with what he was doing, how he was doing it, the colors he was using, just blown away. Now, you know, I'm a bilingual Hispanic growing up in Arlington County, so I was a nerd, and all my experiences were just visually seeing this from this cocoon train and through this movie, and then, you know, I turned 13, and my dad's like, "Look, don't go out into these streets doing this. You could paint on my garage." He had an auto body shop, so he gave me spray paint. I go out there. 14, I'm 15, 16 years old. I go. There used to be, so 14th Street crossing from Virginia into DC. You used to be able to get off, and where there's these nice buildings now. It was like a train depot where the trains were coming, and those walls down there were free for all. And it was, again, so I'm down there, I'm throwing stuff up, I'm getting chased by the crews out of there. It was quick. I was like, you know what? I ain't built for this, because they got like 10 people with them. And it's me, my bag of cans, and I'm chubby and slow. I'm not doing it. This ain't for me. And then my mom was like, "If you get arrested, I'm not coming for you." You pay. You don't pay. That's how you learn. So I'm like, she's not coming for me. She's not gonna come for me. So I'm like, all right, you know what? Let me just. That was my early experience with it. It stayed with me forever. I was always, and I had a knack, like, you know, I'm one of those kids that if I won awards in kindergarten. I did a poster for Colgate. It was a ball of plaque being chased by the little red dots. I don't know if they would go to your school to give you the little red dot that dissolved in your mouth to show you if you were brushing well. Some of y'all might be too young for this. But, all right, don't look at me like I'm crazy. But they would go to your schools and show you if you were brushing well. They'll do this in the morning. They give this little red dot, it dissolves in your mouth, and then you rinse it out, and whatever red stains remain was where you didn't brush well that morning. Yeah, no, they would embarrass you straight up. And so the little red dot, a thing of floss, a brush, a toothpaste, and the mouthwash was chasing this ball of plaque. And I won. And it was a national award. I won a $50 U.S. savings bond. And it was the thing they made it to posters to put into dental offices all across the country. And that was my first experience ever winning something in art. And it was through the expression of having seen these graffiti things, because graffiti is just an exaggeration letters. You know, you're not just writing it, you're drawing letters. You're not writing letters. When you see the characters in graffiti, they're all exaggerated. So it was that influence was already there in this poster that I did, and it always stayed with me. And I would draw all over my homework. My mom got, you know, back in the day, you know, again I'm a date myself, but the teachers called late in the day. They would call your house late in the day. They didn't call during the day. They didn't write you an email because there was no email. So they would call late in the day. So I remember the phone rings, and I had got scolded by my teacher. I'm like, I know what this is. I know what's my bad. I'm about to get in trouble. My mom answers the phone. Hello, yeah, this is so-and-so teacher. You know, your son is very smart. You know, he's doing his work. He's drawing all over his work. He's everything. He's writing letters. He's doing graffiti all over his work. It makes it very hard to read. And my mom was like, can I ask you one question? And the lady's like, yeah, sure. Is the answers right? Like, is he doing the work right? And he was like, yeah, he's a very smart kid. Don't call me again. Shut up. And I was like, ooh, Mom. Okay. And so that was, you know, that was my mom giving me permission to express myself. And as long as I didn't get locked up, she was all for it. And my dad would give me space. And these red line trips would give me inspiration. And so I kind of had all the ingredients that I needed to practice it, and graffiti-wise and stuff like that. And that was my first love. I mean, I remember doing murals. My dad bought a restaurant, not knowing anything about restaurants. My dad bought a restaurant when I was 19, 20 years old. That was my first restaurant mural I ever did. I did for him. It was a bullfighter because it was a Mexican restaurant. And then he lost the restaurant like 3 months later. He didn't know anything about restaurants. So, you know, but I did the letters of the restaurant and everything freehanded, and people were like, wow. So, but that was graffiti for me. That was public art for me. That was big art for me. And my introduction to it, and then, you know, full circle, you know, we're out in DC on COVID, and very similar. There was a moment where we did we were all around Gallery Place. They had boarded up Gallery Place. The businesses were still open, but they were boarded up for safety during these times. And so I did this dove. In front of what was Urban Outfitters at the time. I didn't know it was Urban Outfitters. It literally was just luck. And I did this dove in graffiti, and in the wings I put, you know, Black Lives Matter, and in the other wing I put unity, love, and da da da. And the manager loved it. The manager was like, yeah, this is crazy. Who did this? Blah, blah. And so through that, we were able to do a series with Urban Outfitters. They did a short run of these shirts of the murals that we were doing, and it was crazy. It was like, yo, but that was my moment in it where, and he forgot to tell you this, he being humble, but Nas took a picture in front of the mural that he did, the same mural he's talking about. Nas took a picture in front of it was one of the coolest pictures I ever seen in my life. I never wanted to spray over his shit so badly in my life. But I let it go. I told you, there's a bit of envy. I'm not going to sugarcoat it like they would. But for me, my moment was the fact that, like, the art I did left an impression on this business. This business didn't talk to John. John and them made a deal to put our artwork on shirts, and those shirts sold out literally within like 72 hours. They dropped on a Friday, and by Sunday there was no more available. And it was in that moment that I was like, not only are we out here, side note, I'm sorry, I'm not going to go long, I promise. I'm trying not to be Levi right now. But as I'm painting, right, there was you know, young men working the corner, and you know, this lady was like, you know, when you're working, do something about them brown babies that they put in cages. This was during that time where immigration was just putting the little kids into these dog kennels. And this one young man was like, F them brown babies. They not going through what we go through out here. And I'm like, I'm hearing it, and I'm like, you know what? This is not the space. I'm here to do a job. And even though I'm doing the message of Black Lives Matter, blah, 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 I'm not going to be divisive today. This is including because, you know, this one little kid because I talked to at-risk youth, and this one Spanish kid was like, if you see the way they treat it and they speak English, what hope do we have? So that was my motivation. Was in the back of my head, like, nah, it has to start somewhere for all of us. And so I kept working, and then I guess would be the manager of that business came by later on and was like, yo, this is pretty dope, though. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. And I guess somebody told him what he had said earlier to me, and he was like, man, go apologize to that. And I was like, So the young man from earlier was like, you know what? I shouldn't have spoke like that. Like, that's not for me to do. That's not for me to say, you out here doing this for us, and I'm over here talking on the side of my neck. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. You know, because in that moment, there was that wall or that anger or that divisiveness that had been created through what was happening, and I understood it. That went away just through the labor that was being done. And then what was to come next, it was really, like he said, in that place, in that moment, it was really where I was like, oh yeah, this is where I was, all of that happened for me to be here. And it was a really good feeling. So.
Thank you. We've gone a bit through some of the elements of hip hop as you all have gone through your stories, and as it's been told to me, health and wellness is also considered an element of hip hop. And in this collective of creatives in this room, I can tell that there are many. We know intimately that our communities and our lineages bring wellness, bring wholeness to us in our art. And so I wanted to ask you all, how has being part of the DC arts community, how has it helped awaken you to your responsibility as artists?
Before I answer the question, I just want to say something that came to mind when I was listening to DEZ and Levi. And it seems like art has been a bridge that connects a gap. Because when I heard Levi talk about the cop asking if it was okay because of the homeless people that were there, and then the homeless people asking you if you were okay because of the cops did, and then there, you know, and when people. Sometimes we may have miscommunications with people, and sometimes one little instinct can actually make you judge a person, and that person could have just had a bad moment or a bad time. So just listening to them talk and their experiences made me realize that in life sometimes we have to give people chances and we have to talk to each other, even when we disagree. And I think that kind of falls into your health question, because one of the things about health is that the things that we consume that are negative really affect the way that we, that our body and our community is really reflects to the people around us. And if you really think about social media, they call it a feed. You know, when you have a feed, it's usually for animals, you feed them something. So when we have social media, depending on how your algorithm is going to be given to you, is really going to affect the way you are. And I've seen this with young people that is really affecting them in a negative way, because a lot of times when you listen to a message on Instagram about a certain topic that's happening around the world, if you watch one video, they're going to keep throwing that video towards you, and a lot of times you may be believing something that is not necessarily a fact. And that's something that I see that is very negative. And where art comes in is that art is that one thing that you can see that can break up those algorithms in a positive way. Because anytime that we're thinking about health, mental health is something that is very devastating, especially for men. Because it seems like men are the ones that are usually, they expect us to be tough, they expect us to be the providers, and we're supposed to be those things, but at the same time, we have a lot of needs that sometimes that people don't realize, especially emotional needs or mental needs. And in our communities, black and brown communities, it seems like we don't really have the outlets, and we don't have the opportunities to get the help that we need, because sometimes we don't even know we need help. And a lot of us have trauma that we have built in based on experiences. We don't know that we need help, and sometimes you be like, why does that person act that way? and it's because of the trauma, the built-in trauma they had. Not only the experience, but a lot of times there is trauma in our DNA that has been passed down through our ancestors. And art is something that I think helps us channel those negative things, because one of the things that I do when I'm having a lot of problems, everybody has life problems. No matter how successful you are, how much good things you're doing, you always are going to have problems. And art is something that has been that I've used as therapy. And I've also noticed that other people, you may not want to be an artist or painter, but you can use art to better yourself and also get your mind out of the everyday hassles and the everyday problems. And art has been something that I teach my kids. This is what you can do, and I teach them that your art doesn't have to look perfect to be valuable. I love Basquiat, one of my favorite artists, because his art, it has a very childlike look to it. It has a lot of innocence in it, but at the same time, it's very successful. And I think that children, a lot of times, need to be given the opportunity, because to express themselves and also value whatever it is that they create, whether it looks messy or sloppy, it's something that it really helps their mental health on how to express themselves. So I think art is something that is very instrumental. I'm trying to figure out a way that I can get my kids, if they're ever, sometimes I'll let them be on YouTube, and I try to figure out how I can get the algorithm to pitch more art toward them, because I always see how anytime they see something very creative, it really sparks so many new or more things for them to do. Now they're working on short designs because they saw a YouTuber doing that. And the thing is, sometimes they may see me do something and they don't grasp it, but then they'll see somebody else do it and they get the idea. And I'm like, I did that first. But I think that's But I think that is with our parents too. Like, somebody can tell you something time and time again, but until somebody else tells you the same thing, then you go, okay, that makes sense. So I think art is very important in that way. So I think mental health is something that really helps our physical health.
Yeah, so similar to what Luis is saying about the things that we're fed, or the way we consume images. We were, the day that it really dawned on me how impactful art can be was when we were, again, when we were out doing a lot of this work in the city. I'm now translating my art from, at most a 36 by 36 size canvas, to a 8-foot by 10-foot wall, suddenly. And what dawned on me in that moment was, first of all, we were speaking to a moment, right? And so in speaking to a moment with public art, you have a very finite amount of time to make an impact. It's not like, again, these paintings on the wall, people can come in, they can grab, refreshment, they can consume the art, they can discuss it, and, they're invited. With public art, the consumers aren't invited. They just happen to be here, So you have to, as an artist, you have to take that opportunity to make whatever message or make whatever statement you're trying to make in as quick a time as you can. Somebody's riding by, they look up, they go, oh, I get it, and they go, right? And so you kind of have to approach it in that way. And so that sort of changed the way I view the power, that we have in the brush. Because what I found during that time period when we were doing public art, I was like, the amount of consumption went up so much. And so it's like, whatever I put on this particular canvas, I have the opportunity or the ability to change someone's day, to change someone's life, to change someone's perspective, And we did this project for the Building Museum and Jay. And one of the questions that, we all did a series of interviews, and one of the questions they had asked me, we had all the same questions. when they asked, one of the questions that sticks out in my mind is I had done a mural of John Lewis, and it was just before the what was it? The anniversary of the March.
Yeah, Selma.
March on Washington. It was on the anniversary of March on Washington. No, not Selma.
I wasn't,
No, it was the March on Washington. It was the anniversary of 50th anniversary. So.
okay.
And so I chose to do John Lewis, and we did the Big Six. John Lewis, you did
Whitney.
Eli.
Yes.
You won that. But anyway, Martin Luther King, and so anyway, I had done a mural of John Lewis, and in answering that question, like, what do you want your art? What do you hope your art can do? My response was, I hope that my art can spark a conversation. Whether you agree with John Lewis or you disagree with John Lewis, one thing that we all can identify with is struggle and sacrificing your life for something larger. Like, this is a man who was beaten, who was thrown in jail, and for what? One of the things that he stood on the most was the right to vote. We have to have a voice. We have to have a voice. We have to be able to participate in this thing they call democracy, in this country. If we have a chance, to obtain any level of real happiness. And this man dedicated his life to that. And if you can't identify with that, then there's something just missing in your humanity, And so I was like, I just want to, through my art, I want to be able to have conversation or encourage conversation. And so I think being in this particular, for me, being in this particular town, being in this particular area, things are so much more magnified, or they can be so much more magnified. For instance, the Black Lives Matter being written down the middle of 16 changed the whole world. They started doing that in Switzerland.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's doing that all across the planet. And so I feel like the voice that we have in this city is as important, or can be as impactful as any voice, any type of voice, by the way. Speech, whatever, music. We have an opportunity to influence just as many people's thoughts and their emotions as anyone, and I take that responsibility very seriously, very heavily. I've had someone ask me, why do you paint so many black people? Why don't you paint any white people? And I'm like, we got a lot catching up to do. Right? You feel me? Like, there's enough white images for us to have consumed, whether it's through television, through art, through whatever. We've consumed enough, don't you think? We got a lot of catching up to do. And so I got numbers I'm trying to make it. All right? So that's how I feel.
So, on the mental health side, so then I'm trying to do this quickly, but number one, to Levi's point, King Tut in my social studies book in elementary school was blonde-haired and blue-eyed. King Tut. Yeah. If you Google it, you can see it, and it's the image that was in all the textbooks when I was young. The Pharaoh, blonde hair, blue eye, looked like this gentleman here. So, now, to the mental health aspect, my experience with mental health and art was early on. I was, and then those of you that have come to the show, the Journey of the Broken Child from last year, there's a couple seats right here. I was an abused child from the age of about 5 to 6 years old until I was about 12 years old. And because of that experience, I was a suicidal kid. I didn't want to. I had threatened to do it on the phone with my mom when she was away on a trip, because when she would leave me, my grandma would abuse me in severe ways. So for me, art, honestly, you know, I want you to take your worst day as an adult, and then believe wholeheartedly that every day that you wake up could be that day again. So that was my youth. That was my childhood. If I knew my mom wasn't going to be around, there was a likelihood that it was going to happen again. And these experiences were severe for me. So through art, though, like, I was able to stick around.
Sorry, we can say things out loud. I
Yes.
think.
So if this is the time in which, please continue. But I was going to say, if anybody had any questions right now, that based on what we've talked about, you know, I just wanted to make some time that we can, you know, that we have you all engaged and respond. So absolutely. So
I'll wrap it up so you guys don't forget your questions.
no.
So
please.
anyways, so art for me as a child allowed me to kind of put everything on paper without writing. Because if had I wrote it and my grandma caught it, it would have been bad. But I could draw it, she couldn't understand it, and she couldn't, you know. There were a lot of cries for help, there were a lot of things like that. So that was my earliest experience with art, just being able to hold me long enough and make me okay to make it a little bit further. 76% of all suicides are men. That's scary. And I think the statistic now is 1 every 32 seconds. Worldwide. I do a lot of research on it. One of the pieces I did is I'm all right because to Luis's point, as men, you know, it's wake, work, repeat. That's what we're taught. We're not taught pause, smell the roses, hold your wife a little longer, ask for help, speak. How often? You're not all right? But your boy comes to you, hey man, how you doing? I'm all right. Why? Because you weren't taught, bro, I'm not good. I'm going through it. And if you could talk to me for 30 minutes, it would help me a lot. You're not taught that. We're not taught that. And so, you know, as men, I'm all right. That's our answer when we're not. And for me, luckily, I think you can kind of see it in the use of color, and I let it all out. I often say that my work is more of a Polaroid. It's not this long thing that happened. My pieces usually get done within no more than 24, 48 hours. Like, I can't because I'm trying to let it go. Whatever's in here, I'm trying to put it on there, and then it's done. And I'm leaving it on. And then if I don't like it, I'll cover it later. But I have to get it out. And it is a very, if you look at it, there's a lot of movement, and there's a lot of, for me, it's therapy. Art always has been and always will be therapy for me. I think that's another draw to the graffiti aspect of it is you're working big, you're moving, you know, endorphins are flowing, you're getting it all out, you know, and then you can step back and be like, ha. So yeah, to just like I said, I'll wrap it up. But for me, art has a very dear place for me because as that kid, I am often afraid to think of what would have become of that kid had he not had art, because that's one of the things I held on to and that let me be okay a lot of times when I didn't think I was going to be okay. So.
Thank you for your invitation to honesty for your work as well. And I think, as Adrian was saying earlier, this is an intimate space, and it is an interactive space. And what I love about the three of them in their practice is that they're able to involve and implicate the community quite directly. And so if as you're hearing things, as you're feeling things, there'll be space, of course, at the end for everyone to divulge their questions, thoughts, feelings about the show and the work, which we'll get into shortly. But if you're, as you're feeling, experiencing what folks are saying, you'd like to say something, feel free to call out. Yeah, thank you again. And what inspired that question about health and wellness for me was at the opening, seeing the three of you interact for the first time, not on Zoom. I think it was Corky, who's another artist that the gallery has worked with, and said that this could be a podcast. And yeah, they were just all, I don't know, maybe in your part of Jersey you said razzing as well. I'm from Jersey as well. We said razzing. They were all razzing each other and all that. And so the partnership that you all share, I think, has been really inspiring for me. I think often as artists, even beyond art spaces as well, we're encouraged to silo ourselves in the work that we do. But hearing from you all how your partnership has inspired and has been generative in the work that you do is really amazing. And I wanted to bring it back to the show, specifically Crescendo, and ask you all in the curation and in the bringing together of these works, how do you feel like the pieces are in partnership or in collaboration with one another?
Ooh, I'm gonna jump in. So I think what I love most is that you're literally seeing like excellence, like a crescendo is like that part of the song that like, oh, like it's building. And you're right there. And I think lately, Levi's stuff is just, it's gotten to this part where right now it screams at you, even though look, I'm gonna throw some flowers right now. Even though he doesn't use a lot of color, his work right now is hitting this peak from what I've seen in the last 4 or 5 years, where it's really impactful. It draws you in and you want to keep staring at it. Even though you feel like from far away you got enough, the closer you get, the better you get to it, the more you fall in love with it. I've been a fan of Luis's work for a long time, and it's the same thing. He continues to elevate and push these and bring in elements of graffiti where you're like, that is writing in the background. I didn't even, because I look at it and it looks just like an ombre, and then you look at it and you're like, holy moly, that's actually, there's words back there. He's writing, he's talking to you. And he wants you to see it, but he doesn't want it to take away from the art. And his ability to balance those two things is, to me, again, this execution level where it's getting to that note, that beautiful note, that moment in that song where you're really appreciating it. So I wanted to jump in there because to name this show that, and then to see this, I think it's well balanced. And what you're looking at is this is kind of like an orchestra. Everybody has their specialty, but you can take the time to walk around the room, and the pieces, they do complement, I think, each other in the skill set, in the delivery of what they're giving to you, which is a high note of what everybody can produce. So I wanted to jump in on it.
Thank you, brother. So, Crescendo, when we first, talked about doing this show together, and of course this was, by the way, Luis's idea. So, thank you. But when he presented the idea of the three of us doing the show together, it was like,
It was.
We've never done a 3-man, show together before, and it was just I was excited. So, and I had all these dreams and plans. We were supposed to do a collaborative piece, all three of us, one piece, big signature piece. That was real ambitious, to say the least. But the way that I saw this show, I think of my work as sort of a quiet, it's I often depict my subjects in peaceful moments, you're wondering what they're thinking, you're wondering like, what's the story here, and it's really, there's a quietness to it. Until, of course, you get up on and you see all the stuff that's going on in there in terms of strokes and texture. But it still sort of rests. I feel like you get to rest on all of it. Luis, I feel like, is that next phase where his portraits, you know, they're restful, they're peaceful, but behind him, you know, you see the, you know, the graffiti and the color, and you know, your heart rate goes up a little bit, you know, when you get to Luis, and then you move from Luis, you get to DEZ, your heart rate just jumps, you know, and so you hit that high note, you know, when it comes to DEZ and the energy that he brings into his work, and I just feel like that to me, that's the heart of this show. You have this sort of rhythmic, this musical experience, you know, when it comes to how, you know, our work relates, you know, to one another, and our personalities, by the way. I think in a lot of ways we're just, you know, from our personality standpoint, I don't know though, Luis, he's a little, yeah, you're going mellow with me. You're a little mellow than me.
You guys switch places there.
We switch
On that part.
every now and then. Luis is pretty mellow. He's not mellow. We often say that he's the accelerator on the brakes.
From the gas, bro.
Like, whoa. Slow down, hold up.
Oh, let me have a good time.
But yeah, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, so when this show came about, I just remember me and Adrian have been talking about doing a show and working together for a long time. It's just the right time didn't come up until we kept meeting at different places, and I was like, man, we got to do something together sometime, and he told me the same thing. And then when the time came by, it just came to mind, and I really love these two, their work. I called Levi, and I was like, man, you know, Art knows, man, he's doing some great stuff, man. I think I don't even know how I said it, but I think it would be great if we do a show together, because I love the things that, the way Adrian really laid out this room. It's museum quality, only because when he put it up, when he, you know, him and his curator, the installer worked together, and I came in, I was really impressed by the way that he chose to put the pieces the way they are. Because sometimes you have to really know how to hang a work to make it look cohesive and make it look like a harmony. And when I think about Levi's work, it reminds me of this song called "The Sound of Silence." It's kind of like a rock song, and anytime I look at his work, it really has that. It reminds me of that, the sound of silence, because they are very peaceful, but at the same time, as you get closer, you really hear this loud voice within the portraits that he's portraying. And I think they're very powerful because he's actually introducing a lot of texture in his work. He's really developed so much in the last, and I think we've said the same things to Levi in separate instances, because I think the same thing that DEZ said about his work is the same thing that I've been telling him, is that you have hit a peak in your work that is really, everything that you're producing is really hitting it to the max. Each piece is a home run.
Yep.
And DEZ, when I called them, I was like, I know you're working with the NFL, you're working with the National Hockey League, you're working on this piece, man, can you do a show with us? And then, yeah, I'll do it. And I was just, it happened within 5 minutes that I talked to both of them, and this show came about so easily. And I knew that I
When
would.
Luis calls you, you don't say no.
You're
not gonna be like, nah, I'm good.
So it was just so easy to put this show together, and Adrian has been also so easy to work with.
Yes.
And one of the things that I love about DEZ is that in such a short period of time, he went from doing all this work. You know, he does shoes. I don't know if you guys know this, but he does shoes for NFLs and football teams and all these kind of high-profile people. But there's always like a difference between commercial art and fine art. And when he got into the fine arts, I was just so happy because I knew he had so much to offer in the fine art world. And he did it in such a, just like he says, like he goes up to a mural, he does it like in like 4 or 5 hours, he's done. That's exactly what he did when he immersed himself into the fine arts world. And now you see his work, go from one thing, and that's the beautiful thing about art. We can't put artists in a box because the same way an artist can paint is the same way an artist can create poetry. When I saw him really immerse himself into fine arts and really was pushed also by Levi to tell his story as a kid, because he actually did a whole solo show, right, that really spoke about his work, and I think that also took his work into a more narrative content, and it really helped him tell stories. So watching them grow and also watching me grow by seeing them grow, because I think we can always help each other out, just like Levi said, iron sharpens iron. And one of the things that we have to learn as artists is that we don't have to take each other down to make that. We don't have to be crabs in the barrel. And it seems like sometimes we have so much musical talent in DC, especially rappers. But it seems like the rappers are always killing each other in DC. And that's why we never have a thriving hip hop culture, because it's so violent. And one of the things that I wanted to do with art is always collaborate with artists, find the best artists, and also find artists that we can help, the emerging artists that we can help and bring them to another level, because that is the only way that we're going to be able to really create a culture and really bring the Renaissance, the true Renaissance to DC through the music, through the art, through the poetry. And even after this artist talk is over, please talk among each other. I met a young writer here today that she can tell you about her work. Everybody that's here has something to offer, and you don't have to be an artist to love art. You can become an art dealer, you can become a consultant, you can be like a gap between someone that is looking for it, but now you have Adrian here that you can, he can help you reach out artists from around the DMV. And that other day that we got together here for the opening, we actually attracted some of the best talent in the DMV. We had some of the best muralists, fine artists, painters, people that just came here and had fun. So when you think about, Studio 54 in New York, back when, Andy Warhol and Oscar and them, we are creating that environment now. And then sometimes we just don't know it until 10 or 15 years from now. So, thank you, everybody, for coming out here. And I'm not saying bye, I'm just saying.
Yes, we are.
Awesome.
Yes, we are.
Okay, we are? Okay.
No, it's okay.
Thank you. That was actually such a perfect segue into opening it up to the audience for any of the questions that they may have. I do have so many more questions, but I know we all have your numbers, so I can just text them to you. I don't want to be selfish, so if the audience, if y'all have any thoughts, feelings about the work, about what was shared here today that you'd like to share, or even if you want to introduce yourselves, because you don't need to be strangers, as Elise just said. Now is your time. I can also put people on the spot. I can do that.
Don't be shy.
No matter if of course it's gonna be me. So hi guys. So first I just want to say thank you so much for the art that you create, because I've gotten to know your work just walking the streets. I love street art. I love murals. Luis, I think you were one of the first artists that I ever was aware of when I started getting into street art, and I kept seeing your work, especially in Anacostia, and then I started reading about you, and every artist kind of linked back to you. You're always one of those names. So to get to actually meet you was amazing. And I just love that you kept your work. Well, not kept your work, but that you always come back to Anacostia, and you've done so many group shows. I've seen your work at On Floor and with different artists, and that's how I've gotten to know a lot of different artists, is through the shows that you've done. And I've seen your work down in Gallery Place, so it's great to see it in this other medium. Because it's funny, a lot of times I'll think of someone as just a muralist, and then I'll see their work in the other context, and it's like, oh, well, of course, if they can paint this, they can paint that too. So it's just great to see your work in another kind of forum that I'm not used to, and it's a style that's different than what I've seen before. And I just find looking at art very therapeutic. It is, it's my happy place, because I have no artistic talent whatsoever. So just being able to see art and that inspiration and the color and the vibrancy, it's a nice break, and it gives me energy to go back and do, whatever it is I need. So I just want to say thank you very much for just putting your work out there, so I do get a lot from it.
Thank you. Can you tell us about your what do you do?
So my name is Paige Mahler. I have a company called Curious Caravan. I curate custom experiences, especially off the beaten path, because I feel that, you know, DC is known for obviously monuments and stuff like that, but there's so much more. It's stuff like this, it's the community, it's the art that really make DC, DC. So I really feel it's important to introduce people to those other elements so that, you know, they're not just checking things off a list. I really want people to appreciate why this city is amazing, and it's the people that make it amazing.
Nice.
Yeah, thank you
That's
for your
good.
work as well.
That's awesome.
I just wanted to say, I don't have a question, I just want to say that sounds really creative. So
Right.
Yeah, I wanted to say the same thing. People, you know, always say I have no creative. And I'm like, there's something in. I think we're built to create, you know, in some form or another. You know, we just think of it, you know, like we gotta paint a perfect picture or paint a perfect portrait, in order to be considered creative. And you know, art is so much more. It's so much more broad than the boxes we tend to put it in. As you know, you mentioned Basquiat and the way that he paints. It's so free, you know. It's so, you know, liberating. Like you can literally just put what you're feeling, just make a mark. There's a great artist that I just look up to so much, and he doesn't even really consider himself a painter or artist or whatever. He just calls himself a mark maker. I'm a mark maker, you know. He just makes a mark on a page, and you know, it is what it is. So
And you're making your mark.
You're making
So,
your mark. Yeah.
I love that.
And I love your dress too.
Thank you.
Sir?
So outside of the kind of mediums that you're known for, right, are there any ways that, or any mediums that you'd like to create and that maybe people will be surprised by, or even things that you haven't tried yet that you're looking to get into?
You can probably tell by looking at me, but I cook really good. I feel like if I wasn't an artist, I might have tried to be a chef. I love it. And then again, it's the therapeutic side. Like I'll cook for an hour and a half and I won't care. Like once I start plating it and setting the place down for my family and everything, like that's the part I love. Like it's all that it takes to get to the end part. So I mean, you could have maybe guessed it by looking at it, or maybe just thought I'd get a lot of fast food, but that's it's actually a passion for me. Like I love cooking. I really enjoy it. It's a lot of fun for me.
For me, it's singing. I used to sing when I was younger, but I have debilitating stage fright. You know, it's probably not quite as obvious now, but it took building this muscle, you know, to be able to speak publicly. Like you have no idea, like just debilitating stage fright. So
Levi only started showing his art like 8 or 9 years ago. Yeah.
And
So this has been an interesting journey.
It has. And it came as a result of me, you know, having a traumatic life experience where, you know, I think a big part of social anxiety is this fear of being judged, this fear of, you know, it's a fear, right? It's a deep-rooted fear in how people perceive you and not wanting to fail, you know. And when I went through this experience, it kind of stripped me of that, you know. It was like, what the hell you got to lose now? You know, people have seen you fail, you know, so why not, you know? And so it gave me an opportunity. It was the first time I actually entered a piece into a show, and it was the first piece to sell, you know, in that show, and it just kind of changed my life, and so I was able to kind of start building the muscle to be able to speak publicly or whatever. But singing, I would never do publicly, so. Get about it, but that's the other art.
Yeah, I'm like DEZ too. I love cooking. I cook pretty much every day, 2 to 3 times a day. One is for the health part of it, because I'd rather eat something that I know what I'm cooking with and healthy ingredients. And the other thing is that it's also important for artists to really, and people in general, it's like to have mentors. I have a mentor that she's actually a world-renowned cook maker. And when she saw my work, she purchased actually one of the huge John Lewis pieces that I did. Met her on Facebook, when she first contacted me, you know, sometimes people contact you, they want to buy some art, but I try to, you know, picture a print. Then no, I don't collect prints, I just want originals. And then I sent her the price. She didn't even hassle, try to get no discount or anything. She's like, oh, I love it. Send it to me. But then I started Googling her out of nowhere, and she just happens to be a world-renowned quilt maker that received the Arts Heritage Award from Obama when he was in office. And the thing about it is that you never know who you're going to meet, and you never know how much you need a mentor until you meet that mentor. And throughout my life, I've had many mentors that have helped me to where I am today. And if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have been able to grow as much. So now I'm working towards getting my quilts made. So I've been buying my materials and everything. And one of the things that I'm taking it really slow. And she keeps, you know, she asked me, you know, how's the quilt coming along? It's like I'm gonna get started, but it's taking me a long time because I want to find my own voice. And yes, it's so hard, and it's also I've been looking at Bisa Butler's work. And her work is so amazing that it's hard for your work not to want to look like her when you're starting out. So, I mean, so then I had to stop looking at her work for a while because it's so good that it's easy to just want to go it her way and almost imitate her work. So I'm working towards that. I'm continuing to build my quilt making materials, and I'm hoping for this, I think in September, October, I'm going to try to have my first quilt made for that. So mentors are really important.
For me, inside of art, I mean, I was speaking outside of art, you know, fine art, but for, you know, inside of fine art, collage is the thing that I've dug into like heavily, and to the point where my collage work kind of competes with my works on oil. I mean, works in oil. People, you know, want to see the collage work. They're like, that's a nice oil painting, but how about you know? So yeah, so collage is one of the other ones, and I want to do a little sculpting, you know. Yeah.
Not you did.
Nah, I don't have. See, these guys are patient, and like I admire that about them. Like he came and gave me a private oil, you know, clinic at my house, and I was like, yeah, man, I'm ready to attack oils. And then I went right back to acrylic because I don't have the patience. Like that's another trait that I admire about them so much, that they have that skill set where they can be patient. They can let a painting develop a little bit more and really build on it and work slow. Because oil is a slow medium. I can't do it. Like I must just think of it as a very colorful, very big Polaroid. That's because if I can't get it out then, it's gonna be different. If it takes too long, it's not gonna be what I intended it to be. And I'm very passionate about delivering what I intended to deliver, not an elongated process of it, because then it changes and it wasn't what it was supposed to be. In my heart, that's the way I feel.
That's one of the things, you know, we talk about what he admires in us and having patience. Like his energy is like, I hate him. We had this project on MLK Day. Now it's freezing outside, right? This particular year, it's like just bitter cold. And we're out, you know, doing this long wall that actually ends up wrapping around the corner. And we go out there and
if you guys know where De Leña is, the restaurant, De Leña, it's that whole face and then going down the street, all of that was boarded. So we're working that whole facade. Oh.
This guy, though, he hits the wall. And me, if you know Sean, SP Plug, it was me, him, and SP. And we out there, we working this wall. And Sean is a rhythm guy. You know, he puts headphones on. It could be 30 degrees outside, he'll take his shirt off.
Right,
you know, but
always want to show off. You should have Black Lives Matter Plaza. He over here, yoga girls are like, sir, he's like, move along. Like, I'm like, why you take your shirt off then? Like,
when we working this wall, and me and Show, we got our sections, you know, we like, yeah. I'm like, you know, I got this. This dude, this guy, and then wraps around the corner. He does this whole, and I'm like, and I'm still teetering, you know. He does it all the time. Every time we show up somewhere, I'm preparing, and he's packing up the leave. It's ridiculous, but it's beautiful. He's just, it's amazing how he can it just spills out on the canvas, and it's crazy.
It's kind of related to what you guys are talking about in a sense, like with how long it takes you to make stuff, but just what does your artistic process look like, period? Like when it comes to like working with ideas, like how long do you sit on them before they translate to canvas or they translate to murals? Like what does that process look like?
Well, for me, usually I don't do too many sketches at all. I usually think about what I'm going to paint for a very long time before I paint it. And I'm always looking, like when I was painting the Malcolm X, for example, I looked at the Spike Lee movie a few times. Then I read some of his books, then I saw some of his debates. So a lot of research goes into it, and it's like so fun to do it. And I think it's very important for me to do a lot of research in the topic that I'm studying. Mainly because I want to go beyond, because I think there's a lot of people that can paint a portrait and be very superficial. I want my portraits to have some depth to them and a lot of history and energy into them. So, and I'm usually working like 6-7 paintings at the same time. And I love painting murals, but sometimes I get tired of murals, so I'll do some graffiti. And if I get tired of graffiti, I'll do a portrait. If I get tired of portrait, I'll do some abstract work. So I'm always going back and forth between mural paintings and small paintings. And sometimes a small painting might take me longer than a large painting. So I don't have like a time set of when I create. I usually just paint, and I don't have like a schedule usually either. I usually just paint what I need to do. Unless I have a deadline for a mural, then I would have to do them at the same time. But I just love to paint different things at a time and paint different styles at a time.
I think Luis and I we work in a similar way. I like to pour a lot of energy into a piece, hoping to like invoke a feeling. You know, it's a feeling that I'm looking for, and so I'll plan out a piece in my head. You know, and I'll go over it a lot, and it'll be something. It'll be stuff. Like if I do a portrait of a person that you know, typically it's isolated to something they either said or something they did, and I'm trying to capture that visually, which is not really easy to do. Like, I'm trying to give an example. It's not easy to do, and so I end up spending a lot of time just trying to make sure that I can nail this emotion, and then I have to name it properly. You know, that's another big part of the process.
Oh man, this guy. When he names his pieces, I'm always like, yo, that's dope. Like he names his pieces so well. I'm so envious of it all the time, because it's like you see the name and you're like, that's one part of his storytelling that he's really like nailed. Like when he puts a name on it, it's like, oof, perfect.
A lot of thought goes into that, because I do these, like most of my work is a reimagination in some form or another. Whether it be, I'm trying to get you to reimagine, the Mozart piece. I'm trying to have you imagine a black man as Mozart, a black man having accomplished what Mozart did, have had the ability to accomplish, all of the things that are encompassed in this idea of, black people being in that particular position at that particular time in that particular place. And so I'm trying to get all of that into an image, and so my hope is that you're able to think about the thing in a different way than you thought about it before, whether it be a phrase that we use, like, whatever, any phrase that you can think of, any little colloquialism, I'll take it and I'll name a piece, but I'll change it, and have you think about that colloquialism in a different way. And
Go
so-
to his page, you'll love it. It's so much fun. Just read the titles, you'll be like, oh, that's dope.
Yeah, and so that's kind of my process. And then as far as time is concerned, you know, I work on several pieces at the same time as well. And part of that is because it's hard for me to say it's done, you know. So I like keep revisiting a piece. You know, I have to leave it alone and go work on something else and then come back to it. You know, and that process, you know, takes a while. So that's how I work.
I feel it before I paint it. And I don't want to say I don't think about it, but a lot of times I'm just pushing paint around. Like you see in the backgrounds, there's a lot of movement. There's a lot of just, I'm feeling something, and then the cameras will talk back to me and I'm like, okay, we'll go there. So usually it's a thought, it's a very general thought. And like the three ladies, yearning, ecstasy, and longing, those are things that in the moment that I wanted to embrace what that felt like and what that could look like. But that's all I had. And it started from the background and moved forward. And so sometimes, you know, sometimes 8, 9, 10 hours, and then I'm wrapping it up and I'll leave it. And maybe, you know, it might be I'll wake up and be like, oh, let me touch this. I'll move back a little bit. I'll look at the picture the next morning and be like, okay, this is missing, but that's it. After that day, it's done. And then if I don't like it, I'll just cover it or I'll do something else on it. One really cool thing recently is I had done this background of this sky scene, and I didn't know what it was going to be, but I really felt like I needed to do this sky scene, and this was months ago. And I did it, and I loved it. As it was, I loved it. I was like, it's just the sky, you know, and I was going to submit it as it was. And then Monday, my mom's name is Consuelo. Like I said, she passed away the 31st of last month. Consuelo in Spanish is consolement, to console, or like I said, consolement. And so I just looked up imagery, and there's an angel of consolement. And so I used that, and I just had this sky background. And I wanted to, in that moment, I was like, I want to do something for my mom. So I grabbed the sky background, and it just fit perfect. So I had left it alone for months because, again, I thought it was done, and then it served as the background to this piece that now I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I absolutely love it. And the only thing I couldn't finish on it, like, I even went out and bought gold leaf because I want to put gold leaf on it, but I ran out of time. But that's the last touch that's going to go on there. But that was it. Like, it was Monday. Now, I laid down I had to get the technical parts done. So this one actually took a little longer. And it was, you know, this one had a definite, it wasn't finished till it was finished. And this one wasn't a time thing. But this one was probably one of the first times that it's taken me an extended amount of time to complete a painting. And this is the first piece that I've done since my mom passed, other than work. Like, my shoe stuff is work. Like, that's kind of a set thing that I know I got to do. But this was the first time that I painted for me since my mom passed, and it probably is one of the longest pieces that I worked on since it's still not done. But for the most part, my process is, again, very different. It's like I feel something, I want to convey that, and then when it starts talking back to me, then we'll have a conversation. But like all conversations, it has to end at some point, and it's usually sooner than later. That's it.
Say something to that. I too lost my mom. So now it's been it's approaching 2 years. But when I lost my mother, I went through this horrible block. You know, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't draw, paint, think. It was just terrible. And then one day, I was just like, you know what? One of the sayings that I've sort of taken hold to over the years is inspiration has to find you working. Like you can't sit around and wait for inspiration to hit you. That's not how inspiration works. You have to do some things. Go out, take a walk, read a book, whatever. Inspiration has to find you working. And so finally I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just put what I'm feeling on a page. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna just get in front of it and just go. And so I did that. I put this big piece of paper up on the wall and I just went crazy. It's the ugliest painting I've ever painted. I promise, it was awful. But it released me, And as soon as I finished that, it was just for my consumption. I took it, I put it in my closet. But after I did that, I put 3 new pieces up on the wall, and then I created a series that night. It was crazy. And so, to touch on the therapy or the wellness question that you had earlier, thank you. Art, in this instance, he's working on a piece that has taken him the longest. And I don't think it's a coincidence that, it's a piece that has his mom in it after having lost him. I think art has the ability, it's you talk about art therapy. It has such a way of just releasing emotions and helping you come to terms with things. And, there's definitely a wellness aspect to being an artist and to consuming art. I just have to say that.
Do we have time for one more question? I kind of want to be selfish because Levi brought up imagination and that's one of my favorite things to talk about. But if anyone has a burning question and they'd like to get it off their chest, I want to make space for that first. No? Okay. I like to give people space. Some people are shy. Some people are shy. That's okay,
Going once, going twice.
Yeah, that way. Yeah. But I was really curious because each of you have operated in so many different sectors of the arts industry, in public art, commercial art, fine art. And in each of those spaces, you're still bringing the fullness of yourself and your stories. And we've already talked about hip hop, we've already talked about graffiti, and then through this afternoon, we've been able to learn a bit more about your own stories and where you've come from, who matters to you, and why. And unfortunately, I think for many artists, we find that as we enter these different institutions, they want the work and they want the aesthetic of hip hop, they want the aesthetic of graffiti, of fine art, of replicating the masters of this and that, but they don't actually want the artists and the artist community who fuels them. And so I really wanted to ask you all, in this vein of imagination, how are you choosing to reimagine what you demand from these arts institutions as you enter into them? And then also, as this is going to be our last question, how as arts consumers, appreciators, supporters, can we best support artists?
All right. Well, I love this one because, through the sneaker, when I first started painting sneakers 12 years ago, there was maybe 25, maybe 50 customizers in all of the United States. And you would pick your customizer off of what you like, because this guy did the essence of. So if you liked Iron Man, he wouldn't do Iron Man on it, but he would do like metal plating and then red pieces and then gold pieces, a little bit of the lasers, whatever. There was artists that would do better portraits than other people. There were artists that would just do colorways. There were artists that would do really different textures. They would do cheetah prints, things like that. Now, fast forward 12 years, and I love and hate this same thing that I was a part of, the kind of the fabric of when it started. Because now look up shoe customizer on Instagram. You're gonna run into 100,000. Like every kid with an airbrush is a customizer now, and the dumbest things are happening now. Like you got these videos that get 100,000 likes because somebody took a shoe and dipped it into hot coffee, and they tinted the shoe using coffee. And I'm like, neat. But when you wear that shoe, your foot's gonna smell like ass and coffee. Like that's what's gonna end up happening, no matter how much you rinse it out. That's the byproduct of what you created. But because it's something new or different, people flock to it. And this video gets, 100,000 plays and this, and I'm sitting there like, what is the value in this? What is the value in this? Is it creative, or is it just something that just is hitting because it's hitting because it was dramatic that you took coffee beans and now you're calling it the Colombian coffee Air Force One, and you're like, it's dumb to me. So now I'm traveling into this new space where I saw it once again, and it's the wave riding that I don't like. To keep it nice, we'll call it wave riding, where if something is done on social media that's popular, everybody paints it. Or if someone passes and they had a certain style, now everybody's painting in that style. And it's like, here we go again. And so, everything covered with epoxy is valuable. And it's like, why? Why? It's a Donald Duck piece and he's swimming in money. And this is selling for tens of thousands of dollars. Why? What? And the guy that originated it isn't even the one getting the most credit for it. So it's one of those things where, to me, navigating these spaces, right? It's almost like, I tell my wife all the time, I might never sell paintings for $50,000, $100,000. That might never happen for me. But what I will know is that I always painted the way I painted. And when I pass, people will go, damn, that was kind of crazy. But if you really look at this piece, and he must have been moving a lot, then they'll dissect it. Then it'll have value because there's already people that have paid the money for it. And so I tell her all the time, like, my kids will be rich. I won't be, but they will be, because you'll never find an era in the artwork that I've done where it looked like somebody else's art. And I think as art consumers and as art appreciators, I think enjoy everything you see, but really try to find the story, right? Because it's cool and it looks cool to have, Bugs Bunny in a Gucci robe in front of a Rolls Royce covered in epoxy. The epoxy has glitter in it and it's a big piece and it looks cool, but tell me, how deep does that story go? And how hard did that person search to tell that story or strive to tell that story? How much time did they take in the concept of that? How much detail is in the background? And how much legacy, a word that these two guys use all the time, how much legacy value does it have? In 100 years when they find that piece, is it going to drive the same way? Is it going to be looked at the same way, or is somebody going to go, is that a page out of a cartoon book? Or are they going to say, I can see the feeling that they were trying to evoke in here. I can see the message of Mozart. What if he had been given the opportunity? What if they allowed Black people to compose? What if they permitted it? What if they gave them, what if they allowed them to hold a violin? What if they allowed them to enter the rooms that they weren't allowed to enter? What are those stories like? What are all of the words written behind that painting? What message was coming from that? How strong does she look at that? Look at that butterfly. How deep does that story go? How deep does that story go? How deep does that one go? Value that. Value the story, because I think we have to be finicky, because if the flash is going to get you, then you also risk making a bad investment. That's the other part, is this is your money that you're investing. What are you seeing, and is it going to carry into the future? When your kids' are hanging that somewhere in their home, are people going to stop and go, wow? Are they going to stop and go, was that a character somehow 100 years ago? Like, where did that come? It's kind of weird. Know that, like a human hand, a figure of strength, details like that will last forever. Will be appreciated in any age and era. So that's, for me, both. I hope I've answered. Like, I think artists that it's very hard, and I get it, because you want to make money as an artist. It's very hard to not make money as an artist. You have a family to feed, especially if that's all you do. So it's very hard not to go, let me jump on that wave. But I think that I love consuming the stories, and I think the more consumers, the more art appreciators, the more art advocates learn to appreciate the story and the storyteller. I think the more you're going to see artists of quality today being valued when they should be valued, not when they're long gone. And I think it's important, and it's important, especially as advocates of art, as appreciators of art, as consumers of art, to do that. To enjoy the thrill, enjoy the fun. Come on, who doesn't watch a comedy? Who doesn't watch a mindless, funny thing? We all need that in our lives. Come on, who doesn't like to turn up the glass sometimes, listen to that dumbass song that doesn't make any sense? But also take the time to find the poetry in the artwork, because I think it's what's most missing and overlooked in art very often. Sorry, I'm very passionate about that.
So, my response to that question is a little bit of an extension of what Des was alluding to. This idea of imagination, right? The group being image, or to be able to envision something in the world that hadn't previously existed, right? With what's going on with technology right now, and the advent of artificial intelligence, and having computers and algorithms creating in various ways, images, art is the least of our concerns as it relates to artificial intelligence, but there was this artist that a photographer recently. I don't know if you guys have heard about this. But there's a photographer that entered an AI art competition, and the photographer actually entered an actual photograph.
It was a pink flamingo on a white sand beach, and he entered it in this AI photo competition. So the photo was supposed to be made with AI, but his was an actual photo, and he won.
He won. And I think what that says is, and this was one of the things, this was a big, point of contention for artists when, this AI generated art started. It was like, these computers going to replace us, this is awful. They're stealing our art, and they're feeding artificial intelligence, blah, 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 blah. And after a certain amount of time, all of the worry, all the concern subsided, because while a computer can generate, it can generate pretty much anything you tell it to generate, right? Let's be real. But there's always something missing. There's still something missing. And computers will likely never be able to provide that thing that comes through the experience of the individual that's making the marks. I did a show years ago, excuse me, back when it wasn't popular for groups, for groups of artists to come together. Myself and a couple of my partners, we were doing that. And I did this show in Gallery Place, as a matter of fact, where we created, the theme was to DC with all my art. So it was a love letter to DC. That was the assignment. Whatever that means to you. And one of the things that I was saying to the audience is, art, like, I'm never concerned with how another artist is going to interpret a theme, to the point where I'm afraid that, we're competing, because I bring a whole life of experience, to the work that I do, so I'm always going to do something that's just different, and it's going to hit you different, and that's to me the imagination, the ability, like it's so being able to create, in my mind, and this is my opinion, being able to create is one of the closest things that, you know, if you're a religious person, you know, you believe in a God or a supreme being, one of the greatest gifts is the ability to imagine and to create from that imagination. It's what separates us from animals, you know. They don't have the ability to imagine and to create, you know. That's a blessing and it's a curse. It's why we have artificial intelligence. We want to create humans now. Now we want to create our version of, you know, this new life form. So that's when imagination it goes out of control. We lose control of this whole urge, this yearning to create, this yearning to imagine what wasn't previously here. That's the dark side of it. But I think the bright side of it is when each of us comes to a page and, you know, we have the ability or the desire, to bring something from within out onto that canvas. You know, we're opening the door for you to see inside what we imagine the world to be, right? And I think that brings with it an honesty and an integrity to the work, and that's what you talk about the Scrooge, the McDuck thing with you talk about Alec Monopoly, right? Yeah, I'm a name drop. You talk about Alec Monopoly. He's taking someone else's creation and he's making this whole, you know, and there's no sincerity to the work, you know, there's no soul, there's no spirit to the work. It's just created for consumption and created for, you know, there's capital behind it, right? I think what I've always advised young artists coming behind me is always be sincere in the work. Be authentic, be you. Just be you. You know, bring whatever it is that you're going through in life, or you want to communicate through this piece of work, do that. Don't try to emulate someone else. You know, use your imagination. And as long as you're doing that, you always there's an audience for you somewhere. You know, you can't force a gallery to feel your work. You can't. We can't force galleries to accept who and what we do. All we can do is do the work. Do the work, and you know your audience will find you. And you know that's to me that's imagination is the thing that we have to lean into and just believe and have trust in your imagination and the things that you're bringing from within. That answers the question.
My take on that is that, and I agree with both of them, is that I think every artist is born with a dialect or a language that they speak. And a lot of times that language that we speak, that we're born with, is not understood by a wide audience. When I first started doing graffiti, and I was going to the Corcoran School of Art, I got some scholarships to go to the Corcoran while I was in the 11th grade. And my teachers didn't understand my art. Graffiti was 100% illegal at that time, so anything that I was creating wasn't really valued by some of my fine arts teachers. But that didn't change my focus. I didn't know where graffiti was going to lead me to, but I was just going to be truthful to myself. And one of the things that I realized is that what I was doing with my art, I wasn't necessarily trying to convince people to like my art, but what I was doing is trying to express my human experience. And by doing that, people started gravitating to it, and because they started connecting to it in ways that they didn't really always understand. Because when you're presenting a new language to an audience, it may take a long time for them to really understand it and fully digest it, so they can always, not only are they able to consume it, but then they're able to talk to other people about it. And if I would have taken the advice of my teachers, I had some really good teachers, but some of the teachers in college, the corporate especially, they really didn't understand it. But if I would have listened to them, then I wouldn't have gotten to where I am today. Now I have a piece at the Vatican, I have a piece in China, and I have a piece in different places and I didn't change my language. My language is still the same. When people look at my work, and my friends from who I grew up with, they can still connect with it. And then I can have a person that's a doctor or a lawyer, owner of a company or an institution, have the same connection. So I have this ability to we as artists have this ability to build bridges. And a lot of times, people won't understand your work. And what you also have to do as an artist is to figure out how is it that you can communicate your work to people, because there can be that sense of artists that they want to be so different that nobody understands them. So then I think that that's not being a successful artist, because if you listen to a philosopher, I just did a portrait of James Baldwin, and if he wasn't the great communicator that he is, he could have all these great ideas, but then nobody would understand them. So as artists, we don't have to be so different that nobody understands us. We have this language. We have to really work hard to try to make this language be understood by people. So looking at James Baldwin and seeing, I was like, man, if this guy was a painter, an artist, and if he didn't learn how to communicate to not only black people, but brown people and people from around the world, then he would have not had the success that he did. So, I think we're born with a language, and I also believe in destiny. I think that every person has a destiny to fulfill, and it's not, you can have, you have a goal, like if you're running a marathon, there is a goal and you can get there, but it's going to be a hard journey, and the only people that are really going to survive are the ones that are willing to put in the work hard, because sometimes young artists think that being an artist is about getting high, listening to music and going out partying. That can be a part of it, but that can also be very destructive, because some of my favorite artists fell into the trap and now they're gone at a very young age. So I think that the language that you're born with, craft it and learn how to communicate to people, because if not, people won't understand you.
Thank you. We're about to wrap up, and I just wanted to share this final thing. What I heard in all of your responses, that we can all practice as arts appreciators and creatives ourselves, is to move through this world with patience, integrity, and honesty. And something that at the gallery we flagged as a through line through all this work is self-expression, self-representation, self-actualization. So I hope that as we close out and you continue to look at the work, appreciate the work, practice patience and understanding, and let it transform you in the ways that it's supposed to. And then tell someone about it. We've been here for a while. Tell people to come here. The work is up until July 20th, I believe. So you have time to come back and to spend more time with the work, hopefully spend more time with these amazing artists. And then, of course, connect with the people who are here with you now. And as a reminder, because we have to do it, all the work that you see is available for purchase. So another way that you can support living artists is to support them financially. So if you're interested, there's a QR code posted at a bunch of different corners in the room. You can scan it, learn a bit more about the pieces, see the dimensions, see if it will fit in your kitchen, and see some of the prices as well. So, and you can ask me. My name is Ocean again, or Adrian, the owner of the gallery, or Savannah, one of our lovely gallery assistants. Any questions if you have them. Thank you.
Just what a great job, Ocean. Thank you.
Yes.
Can we give our artists a round of applause, please? Can we give our lovely host a round of applause? Yeah. We certainly appreciate you all spending your Saturday with us. We want you to stay around. We have some refreshments in the back. The artists are going to be here for a little bit. So if there's any other questions or anything that you have or things that you want to say, feel free to do it. All right? All right, let's kick this party out. All right.